my god. So Ben Shapiro. I do love both of them. They do this thing where they bold part of the headline of the story for some reason. I guess maybe that like bugs the algorithm. I don't know, but it's this insane story shows where our society is headed. Uh, and this is again
We'll
about the
see about
ADL.
that, Ben.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Simone Biles.
But this is interesting because he does not take the Matt Walsh route, even though they're on the same network. He has a different approach to why this ADL PayPal thing is not good. So,
neutral service providers will not discriminate on the basis of anything except for conservative politics. This is why the story that is now coming out about PayPal and the Anti-Defamation League is scary. Neutral spaces disappear, and that means further polarization and split in the country.
This is real. This isn't it. Sped up.
No, this is that was his bumper. This is to get you excited about the
Forgot.
content we're about to digest.
I forgot that his voice sounds like
That he sounds like a 13-year-old boy. Yeah.
Oh my god.
And
it sounds like it's like
also
half
cuts, too.
chipmunked, you know?
yeah, he sounds sped up.
I also like the zoom in on his face and the music that it's the world is ending. We're gonna get some high speed logic stuff here.
Today's story from the authoritarian front lines. This is an insane story, but this is the way the country is going to go. Neutral service providers. These are places that just used to provide you services. This is how you think of most of the businesses with which you engage in everyday life. Your insurance company is a neutral service provider. It is supposed to provide you service regardless of race, religion, or creed. Your supermarket, a neutral service provider. And your credit card company is also supposed to be a neutral service provider. Well, certainly PayPal, which is a payment service, right? You use PayPal to pay your bills. That's supposed to be a neutral service provider. But one of the things that we have seen from an increasingly authoritarian left is the attempt to use all of these neutral service providers as bottlenecks that restrict your ability to speak freely, as ways to crack down on the undesirables in the opinion community. We've seen this before.
So
PayPal is gonna hamper my ability to speak freely.
The opinion community.
Bro, we were talking about this on the podcast a little while ago. He thinks money is speech.
there is a lot of
Yeah,
that.
it's
The weird thing here is this insistent on neutral platforms, where what he's referring to by using that language, and I think he's going to get to it a bit in a second, but is the idea of like the same thing that occurred in the civil rights era, which was that you can't refuse service to someone because of the color of their skin or religion or sexuality, right? Or sexual orientation. And so that's what he's referring to. But notice that those special classes, and like I think he even mentions this, but those special classes do not like work with politics. Like you can you can as a company go, I don't want to serve you, bigoted Nazi or conservative, or like you can discriminate based on politics.
Yeah, like when I worked in a grocery store, you could refuse service to anyone for any reason.
Well, except for the protected classes, or else you would.
right. Yeah, not like
Yeah.
Not like yeah, the forbidden reasons.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
ways to get around that by just not acknowledging that that's the reason why you're doing it.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
just make-
he was
you make
scary
whatever
instead
the
of
reason was.
he was brown.
right.
Yeah.
But at least, I mean, it's also ironic, and he's going to touch on it a bit now as well, but I want to flag it ahead of time as well, which is that Ben Shapiro was in support of the people who were suing the government for forcing them to sell a cake to a gay couple. Okay?
Ah.
So I'm flagging that now just to see by the end of this whether we can somehow find like logical coherency in what he's saying. For someone who's mad about PayPal discriminating based on politics, when he was in favor of a gay cake baker refusing to sell a cake to a gay person. or not a gay cake maker, gay cake buyer.
Yeah.
We've seen credit card companies, for example, say that you're not allowed to use their credit cards in order to purchase guns. Right? This has become a major issue in the United States. You've also seen places like Amazon Web Services deplatform Parler. Amazon Web Services is a neutral service provider. In the aftermath of January 6th, you saw Amazon Web Services, at the behest of Democrats, crack down on Parler and kick it off its platform. It was removed from Google. It was removed from Apple Store. It was removed nearly everywhere by the tech companies. Again, all of which were supposed to be neutral service providers. This is the big debate over big tech. Big tech, Facebook, is supposed to be a neutral service provider. It is not supposed to crack down on you on the basis of your ideology. Now, they're...
Did you know that? You're not allowed to crack down on a company based on their ideology. So Nazi companies are completely allowed.
Yeah, gotta allow it. Gotta allow it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they attack the Capitol and try to overturn a fair election, they got to allow that. That's fine.
I mean, you can choose to only support commie companies if you want.
I wonder, like, he mentioned Dan Bongino's thing too. Wasn't he for Parler or?
Yeah, he was one of the stakeholders in Parler, big investor, and he became kind of like the face of it before it collapsed.
Like I get like he's probably friends with Dan Bongino and they're all like friends and pal around and go on each other's shows and whatnot. But it's like Amazon does, like, I doubt that when Amazon or Google and all these people kick off things like Stormfront from their internet services, Ben Shapiro is never going to do a segment on his show about that, is he?
No, probably not.
Never.
No.
Like that's the thing that's most annoying. Is like, if you want to make this argument, at least like try to be consistent about it and be like, no holds barred. Yeah. We need all kinds. Everyone who wants to advocate for whatever degeneracy, just they should have all free reign to post and rant and spread their hate all over the internet. There should be no restrictions. Amazon, even though they're a private company, should be completely prevented from saying they don't want these people using their platform. The libertarian,
these so-called
Ben Shapiro.
I was just gonna say, these so-called libertarians are all about anti-government until the freedom of corporations infringes their ability to spread bullshit.
And it's not preventing their ability. They could just stop saying shitty things. And then...
yeah, like the rules are clearly available. You don't have to break them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
2024, Trump's gonna win on a platform of calling for the nationalization of all social media, so that people can be racist online.
Okay, we know you're right, but like, do you have to say it out loud?
Yeah, I do not sympathies with 2024. And if you still are around podcasting or doing your show in 2024, that is yikes.
It's gonna be a mess.
Yeah. Good luck.
We'll need it. Thanks.
I mean, I already had to go through one election with Ezra, and we're probably gonna have another one coming up soon. And we've been around. Going on 2 years soon. And already we're going to have 2 election rounds. But at least our election rounds are much more condensed. Yours are years
like a
long.
Year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trump's 2016 campaign was like a year and a half. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
No, it's exhausting. I think like could be what contributes to like your low voter turnout. I mean, not that we have great voter turnout as well, but there's something of just like, I don't want it anymore. Make it stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm pretty engaged, and there's a point where I was just stop paying any attention because I can't. I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
Left who suddenly become free market libertarians when it comes to this stuff, treating neutral service providers as though they are basically the Daily Wire, right? They can make whatever call they want about what content they can and cannot engage in. And technically, that's true. These are not government agencies. But when you have neutral service providers that overtly decide that they're going to crack down on particular points of view, this is very bad for the country. And we are allowed to point out that this is very bad for the country. especially because we do have anti-discrimination law in this country. It applies to race. It applies to religion. It now applies to sexual orientation. The one thing it does not apply to is politics. Right? Neutral service providers generally are allowed to deny you service on the basis of your politics. The problem is, of course.
So he's going to get to the problem, but notice. So he's like, it's nothing. There's nothing in the law that like makes it wrong for the companies to do it, but it's still wrong. It still feels wrong. And we have every right to criticize it. Damn it.
Governance by gut check.
Yeah.
Almost like he cares about his feelings on the subject.
Yes.
when we're discussing the facts of the matter, that they're allowed to do this.
Feelings don't care about your facts, all right? I don't know if you've noticed this as well on Tucker's show, but I feel like the one thing that annoys me about covering conservatives, especially lately, is they never, like, there's an interesting discussion here to be had about, like, free speech and hate speech and whether the government can go too far and how to, like, cut that out or carve that up, right? But they never get into that detail. It's just like, oh, well,
No.
like, it's bad what they're doing. Well, why is it that it's bad what they're doing? Right? They're never going to
Yeah, and
like, there's a legitimate conversation here that I would love to have, but we can't have that conversation because you're over here throwing Nazi bombs.
Yeah.
It's not productive.
Or like
Yeah, and
defending the Nazis by like just vaguely gesturing towards a vague notion of cancel culture, but not admitting that that's going to let the Nazis in, you know?
Right.
and I'm like not a fan of whatever. Like, it sucks that there's two companies that control almost all of our online communication, but that's not the discussion they're having. They're talking about getting canceled, which because they broke the rules of the platform, and it's like a totally different, unimportant thing.
No, exactly. I mean, like, yeah, I also, I mean, Vienna probably as well. Not a big fan of big companies, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, in general,
Brave
not
statements.
Yeah. It's just like, and I'm also like, I mean, a lot of leftists have been throwing around, or at least left adjacent people have been throwing out ways to solve this problem and stuff like this. And I don't even fully know where I stand on it, whether it's through like antitrust means or through some sort of like regulatory process in how they deal with this. But like they're never having that nuanced discussion. So it's like every time they talk about it, I want to go in that direction and have that. We've chatted about it a few times on the podcast just so that we can have the discussion, but they never get there. It's always just like right on the surface. They mean to me, and they'll be mean to you, so you should be upset about it as well.
Yeah.
Be angry.
Yeah.
The left has politicized every single thing, right? Everything is political. So if you say, if you're a baker, you say, I don't want to bake this cake for this same-sex wedding, they'll say, you are doing this not on the basis of politics. You're doing this not on the basis of worldview. You're doing this on the basis of animus. But if a baker says, I'm not going to bake a cake for your biblical party, then the idea is that's politics. So everything that the left...
What the fuck are you talking about, Ben? Both of those are political statements, dog.
Yeah.
A cake for your Bible party.
Here's the thing. You're not allowed to discriminate based on religion. Like, he gave two examples here that are explicitly, like, in the law. They are the special cases.
The biggest difference between those two things is that one of them happens.
No, that's the other thing. One of them happens. The others went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court gave a ruling in favor of the cake maker that was like a weird decision that tried to say we're not like instantiating some sort of broader principle here, and they like hand waved about it, but still favored. Sorry, what was that?
They took great pains to be. They took great pains to be like we're just talking about this specific instance, this, not anything else. This one.
But it still allowed the guy to discriminate, and they are the Supreme Court did argue that the reason why is because we don't want to discriminate against the poor cake maker's religious beliefs, right? even though the cake maker's religious beliefs discriminate against someone's sexuality, which is another one of those special cases that you can't discriminate against. But then it's like the other thing is like, I wish like here he would get into the nuance where it's like, why do you think that we would be upset about the refusing to sell to a gay couple? You know, he's not going to get into that debate because he knows that he's going to have to say, because he said it to Dave Rubin's face even one time, that like, I would not sell you I would not even. He told Dave Rubin he would not even attend his wedding, even though he was his friend.
Holy shit,
I saw that.
Yeah. God damn it, Ben Shapiro.
Wants to censor goes in the politics basket, and everything that the left wants to force you to do goes in the immutable characteristic basket that you're not allowed to discriminate against. So the left's categories break down into the stuff you're not allowed to discriminate against and the stuff you are allowed to discriminate against. Everything that is remotely conservative goes in the things you're allowed to discriminate against basket. Everything else goes in the things you're not allowed to discriminate against basket. So when we talk about neutral service providers, increasingly, neutral service providers will not discriminate on the basis of anything except for conservative politics. Okay, this is why the story that is now...
I just want to...
Okay.
Okay, you go first. Go.
Ben, it's not the left's fault that conservatives don't want to do anything for gay people or trans people or brown people. It is the choice of conservatives to say, I want to be bitchy about providing service to anyone who walks into my cake shop.
Yeah, like,
sorry, try.
This was your idea, Ben. Like,
yeah. I think the weird thing is, he's almost explicitly saying that the immutable characteristics are the things that like you shouldn't even be allowed not, like, it's almost like he's saying the left is coming in here saying, oh, all these immutable characteristics should be protected, and it's like, are you saying they shouldn't then?
yeah.
You say we should go
Elaborate,
back to
please.
prior to the civil rights movement and discriminate against black people and have like no blacks allowed sign? Like,
I'm gonna need you to expound on what you mean, Ben. What's the alternative here?
The only other thing I can think that what he's getting at here is things like trans stuff and gay stuff are like not immutable characteristics. Like, he probably believes in gay conversion therapy.
That is what he believes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Gross, Ben.
Now coming out about PayPal and the Anti-Defamation League is scary. So the Anti-Defamation League used to be a much more bipartisan, it was always a left-leaning organization, but it was sort of a bipartisan organization, largely focused on fighting anti-Semitism that was broadened out to include discrimination of all sorts. Now the Anti-Defamation League is basically a Democratic front group, unfortunately. The Anti-Defamation League, in the aftermath of Abe Foxman's retirement, has basically become a sort of talking points organization for the left in a similar way to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Right? The basic idea of the ADL is that you have to focus deeply in anytime there is a Republican who does something anti-Semitic. This is worthy of unending scorn and ridicule. Fair enough. But if you've got the Squad in the Democratic Party saying overtly anti-Semitic stuff for years on end, this is stuff that requires maybe a little bit of tutting, but at that point you sort of let it go. In any case,
I'm almost positive that there would have been an ADL story on Ilhan Omar. Almost positive.
Absolutely.
I think there's been a whole shit ton.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like no possibility.
I'm gonna Google that right. ADL.
Yep.
Ilhan Omar.
ADL
What?
president blasts Ilhan Omar for CNN interview and a bunch of other stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. Simple.
Yeah, that
Google
was
search.
really, guys. That's some difficult journalistic work there.
I think we just destroyed Ben Shapiro with some facts and logic. He has 2 cars. That was a little tut-tut what we did. It was just a tut-tut. What is he talking about? My God. Like, and it's clear, like, I think too, like, his earlier support of the ADL is clearly because he's like, oh, they used to like be super, well, they still are, but he's gonna be like, they were super pro-Israel and I liked them when they were doing that. But now that they're going after conservative right-wing assholes. Now I'm upset about it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just telling his audience who they are, right? Who are going to destroy the country,
Yeah.
destroy our society, like in the title.
The thing is, I don't know if Ben Shapiro does this. The one thing that's annoying with Ezra, and it's so common that it's like clearly something he does on purpose. So Ezra's Jewish, but whenever he talks, so he always talks about these like victims of the left, and often he'll use like vague terms, but he's clearly talking about a real scenario. And when I dig into it, it's a Nazi. And so he's like, I think recently on the podcast, there was a guy where he was like, there was this 70-year-old man who was arrested for a racist phone message he had left on his machine. And he was taken to court and eventually went to prison. And this is like what targeting hate speech does. It targets these like old men that like were just this like unknown quantity just sitting over here, and they target them. So I dig into it and I find this case. This dude, like when I say he was a Nazi, he was literally a Nazi. He was sanctioned by the Canadian government in 1940 for associations with the German Nazi Party.
Holy shit.
And it's like, don't you think that would be
Wow,
useful
dude.
information? And not only that,
It's not.
the answering machine thing was a white power phone line, so people could like call in,
Oh my
and it would just
God.
read like white power literature.
I feel like if I was Jewish, that would be really important to me. If this guy I was defending
Like,
wanted,
that's not an irrelevant detail.
yeah,
Ezra does this all the time, and it's a pattern. Like he has a book called Shakedown, and there's a whole entire chapter where he's talking about free speech and how all these people have been like targeted unjustly. And then like he'll give you, again, there's no citations in his book, which is the worst thing. So he'll just give you a vague scenario, and I had to like dig into it, and then you find out that like, oh, this person was on 4chan spreading Holocaust memes and advocating for genocide. Like, like it's he does this constantly. So I don't know if Ben Shapiro is that level where like he secretly works with anti-Semites or something like that. But I find like Ezra in particular is the worst at that shit.
it always fascinates me when fasci people are advocating for a world in which they will not be welcomed. Recently, like Nick Fuentes went to a CPAC, I think, and he's like,
Yeah.
this huge
White
conservative
power.
name, and it's like, you're a Latino. Like, if you get what you want, you're gonna be riding the train to the concentration camp, dude. Like,
No, it's true.
it's so bizarre.
I do
Yeah.
not understand it, but they do it all the time.
Yeah.
Jody, why are you mad at me in chat, Vienna?
Read Tim's comment.
Oh yeah, Jody once tricked me into reading the transcript of a lawyer in Shakedown who turns out defending the Nazis. In my defense, it was for content. I can't even remember. Like we did that like a year ago. I can't even remember. It was pretty funny though I think that was Paul Frum too. And recently on the show, Paul Frum.
You made Tim read Paul Frum?
I don't know if he would. I can't remember the context. I just think it was about Paul Frum. But yeah, Paul Frum is a neo. He worked. The guy who did the white power phone line worked with Paul Frum as well. He's just a. Paul Frum is this weird neo-Nazi that's been around in Canadian politics. But
Okay.
yeah, no, I mean, and here's the thing is, and Paul Frum is connected to a lot of figures that Ezra invites on his show all the time, which is a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul Frum is why Derek Sloan got kicked out of the Conservatives, isn't he?
We had a member of our Conservative Party that was kicked out of the Conservative Party because he received a donation from Paul Frum and didn't disclose that. And it came out, and it was a big like, oh, you received a donation from a white supremacist, eh? They kicked him out of the party. So at least our conservatives, the least you could say about our conservatives is when there's overt white nationalism, they have to get rid of it. If it's overt.
We're
The
working on getting to that
other
level.
Yeah. Not
another
succeeding,
like
Mark.
notable
So-
thing from Paul Frum is fuck, what was the Canada just recently labeled a like neo-Nazi group as a terrorist organization, and Paul Frum was like the leader of the Canadian branch of
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I think it was Combat 18.
Yep.
Wow,
Yeah.
you guys,
So it's
you
like
guys,
very very openly and explicitly well known as a neo-Nazi.
so you guys get to talk about more legally defined terrorists than we
Yeah.
do.
Yes. Yes. And in part, and the weird part is always it's like Ezra, you don't have to bring this up. you could have just not mentioned this or picked a different example. And just like all his examples are like Nazi friends or something. It's
That's crazy. Like if it's happening that frequently, like that's got to be intentional. Like,
yep. Let's go on. I hope Ben's not at that level, but you never know. You never know.
In case the Anti-Defamation League is now working with PayPal, a neutral service provider,
They're neutral.
in order to crack down on
Did he
content.
tell you what's neutral
And
yet?
they say that they're cracking down on extremist content. The problem, of course, is that the left has a really, really bad habit. And that habit is conflating everything they don't like with extremist content. In the same way that the January 6th Commission is largely going to be about conflating all Republican and conservative ideology with January 6th and saying that if you supported Donald Trump in 2020, it's because you wanted January 6th to happen. Or, by the way, even if you thought that the election was decided by fraud, that makes you a January 6th compatriot. Okay, like I don't agree that November 4th was decided by fraud. I think that Trump lost the election. But there is even a distinction between the people who went and protested that day and the people who actually committed the criminal act of going onto the Capitol grounds, breaking in and threatening people. Okay, but the left wants to wrap all of this up in a ball. In the same way.
Do we want to wrap it all up in a ball?
Okay, so if what Ben is saying were true, that Twitter is discriminating against anyone with conservative political views, wouldn't millions of people be banned just every day? Like there are millions of Republicans just in America. So like I don't know, what I'm trying to say is like he's just making up this idea that there's this huge push against conservatives when it's just the conservatives who are openly opposed to democracy
Yeah.
and the
Tyler,
free practice thereof.
haven't you heard they're hunting down conservatives in the streets?
Yeah.
They're lining them up against walls and just filling
Oh
them
yeah,
with holes.
I drove past the firing squad just yesterday. How could I forget?
Yeah, how'd you forget about it?
It happens so common. You just blank it out, you know?
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes we like to sit around and watch Ben Shapiro's last video before he was seized in the night.
Yeah.
Just to mock him some more.
I don't even know who he's like. I guarantee you there's gonna be some, and I think they're more like resistant libs type or resistance libs type online that are just like all Republicans support January 6th or something like that. I'm sure those people exist. But almost every like left-leaning person that I've ever heard engaged in this stuff seems more like nuanced about like no, I'm less worried about some of the like the boomers that just wandered around the Capitol property than I am worried
Yeah.
about the people who brought tactical gears and clearly came with a plan, or Trump who like didn't have to tell them to go but like stoked the audience in the Senate, right? Like there's different parts of the group that you can be like more nuanced about. But it's like always
Exactly.
they have to paint like the left as like the irrational ones that are grouping them all together. And I'm like, we're not doing that. I think we try to be at least semi careful.
Yeah, like they're like you said, there are important distinctions to be made even within the group, and like I don't think it's necessarily helpful to prosecute the poor people who went to a building. I think it's your energy would be better served targeting the people who made this happen.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, those people have issues that that probably need to be addressed, you know. If you're willing to go along with a mob that broke windows and entered the building they broke into, probably need to have a talking to at least. But like the people who like you know, were right there breaking the windows in tactical gear, waving Confederate flags, maybe those should be the people we're concerned about, you know.
Yeah, Tucker defended Zip Tie Guy on his show, and
Yeah.
that was frustrating.
God.
Like those were not just zip ties; that was like tactical restraining gear.
Ezra defended the Michigan militia people almost word for word like Tucker did the other day too, which I thought was interesting. We haven't talked about that on show yet, but yeah, he defended that, saying it was entrapment, right? It was all FBI entrapment. There was no way.
The FBI did it. And,
Yeah.
Yep.
Which I guess since I brought it up, the answer there is there was FBI involvement, but it was clear they had a plan in motion before the FBI got involved, which is a little different than starting the plot in the first place.
Yeah, and like the reason the number of FBI agents in the group got so high by the end was because like once the group was infiltrated, they brought in more people. Like the guy they introduced them to who could sell them explosives was an FBI plant. So that's how you get to like half these people were in the FBI. Well, not to start with.
Yeah. And it was clear, wasn't it like the one main dude, Fox or something like that? Like he approached
Adam Fox.
Yeah, he approached the dude first and was like, "Hey, we want to do this. help us do this." You know, like that's a little different than like say a lot of the other entrapment that happened, especially against Muslim people, where the FBI was literally caught like, "Don't you want to do this?" and like getting the people on board, which is entrapment. You know. One of these
this
things
is where like this is something we bump up against all the time on our show. Is like being in opposition to Tucker sometimes makes it sound like we're taking the side of like the FBI or the NSA. It's like no, they're bad too. Tucker's just lying about what they're doing. It's bad.
Right. Yeah, and you could like that's the thing is like you could have a more nuanced discussion about that, but they're off in like la la land, you know. Sorry, Tyler, I didn't know if you were gonna say something.
Oh no, I was just chiming. That's all.
Yeah. It was like oh shit, I lost it. We'll go back to Ben Shapiro. It'll probably come back to me.
Okay. What the left would like to do is broaden out the rubric of extremism, dangerous speech, dangerous incitement, to include pretty much everybody on the right. And now they're going to weaponize neutral service providers in order to basically excise you from the community of people who get to participate in the services of a neutral service provider. So according to the Anti-Defamation League, here is their press release.
I just want to pause there to say, like, I don't know if anyone weaponized them. It seems like PayPal just made this decision all on their own.
Yeah, I guess you can't prove that there wasn't some backdoor deal where like AOC texted PayPal and told them to. But like I think it's a lot more likely that they just decided, hey, it's probably bad for our brand to be associated with this.
Ezra's been on this.
The way companies always make decisions.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, it's likely that they're responding to like cultural attitudes, but like, I don't know if they didn't do this, whether it would have mattered. You know what I mean? Like, no one probably would have been like campaigning against PayPal unless there was like an incident where it turns out all these people were making money on PayPal and then did a terrorism or something. You know?
Yeah.
And thank you, like Joe. I can't pronounce it. Jokimicals? Malopes? Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. And I don't give much, if any, credit to corporations that want to signal like how enlightened they are. You know, like I don't think exploitative corporations get a lot of points for just signaling what's popular in the culture. But I think that's probably why people like Ben are so freaked out about it, is because like they are responding to trends in the culture, and that means that your side is losing.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. And like at the end of the day, like I agree with that sentiment. My pushback to other leftists that like get really mad at the cynicalness of it, which it is cynical, is just like, I don't know, I would prefer PayPal or Nike or any of these big companies. I would prefer them signaling to the cultural issues that I like rather than like signaling for fascism. Like if
Yeah.
if Nike
Yeah,
was promoting
absolutely.
like end degeneracy, join the Western
Yeah, like,
civilization, I'd be like a little like I'd rather you not do that.
like it doesn't make anything worse, so
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Release yesterday. And this is dangerous, dangerous stuff because this is going to be the model going forward. You've seen this increasingly. Advertisers are being told you can advertise with MSNBC, you can't advertise with Fox News. You have Democrats who are openly pushing the FCC to crack down on dissemination of channels like Fox News. You saw NPR last week trying to push Facebook to deplatform Daily Wire for no reason other than we're conservative, right? They said we don't lie. They said that we don't engage in conspiracy theories. They said that we're openly conservative and we should be suppressed anyway. The goal here is to take business.
I'm not going to do it, but I want to read that NPR article. That would almost.
Did he say
it the other day?
Did he say that someone is saying that companies aren't allowed to advertise on Fox? Is that what I just heard?
Yeah, he's saying that the left is trying, or the Democratic Party is trying to prevent people from advertising on Fox. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure companies just were like, "Hey, Fox News, you say stupid bullshit. I don't want to advertise for you anymore," and then they left. I don't think that Democrats were like, "Hey, you better stop advertising on that bad network."
I mean,
I could be
So
wrong.
I found that NPR article about Ben Shapiro,
You
and
know, I
I
was
searched for
reading
the
it
word
too.
conspiracy. I think what he's responding to when he says they said they don't engage in conspiracy theories is this line. Shapiro has publicly denounced the alt-right and other people in Trump's orbit, such as CNN, as well as the conspiracy theory that Trump is the rightful winner of the election. So that's what he's talking about.
All right.
And it seems like most of their argument is that they're driving traffic away from like legitimate stuff on Facebook. Like it doesn't sound to me like I don't even see where it's saying you need to ban Shapiro from Facebook. It seems more a criticism of Facebook and their algorithm.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting too.
Outrage as a business model, how Ben Shapiro is using Facebook to build an empire.
Yeah, and
I mean,
like it diverts from like true public health information and things like that. Um, I was just looking at a bunch of this for the Dan Bongino episode because we talked about how he always has like a big share of the top 10 posts on Facebook every day, and the only one who like competes with him in that space regularly is Ben Shapiro. Um, so like he is driving a lot of the attention on Facebook.
yeah. Well, I mean, we'll probably watch more of his stuff, but this is actually the first time we've watched Ben Shapiro on stream. I don't know why it's taken us this long to get to him, but I guess maybe I've been avoiding his annoying voice.
Yeah, that is a drawback.
Yeah.
Businesses, again, which are not subject to First Amendment restrictions because they're businesses, and through both governmental and social pressure, get them to bottleneck free speech. That's the goal here. So here's the ADL's press release. Quote, PayPal Holdings, in partnership with ADL, today announced a new partnership initiative to fight extremism and hate through the financial industry and across at-risk communities. This is the latest effort by PayPal in combating racism, hate, and extremism across its platforms and the industry. Through this collaboration, PayPal and ADL have launched a research effort to address the urgent need to understand how extremism and hate movements throughout the United States are attempting to leverage financial platforms to fund criminal activity. Okay, so if we're talking about how PayPal should not be engaged in criminal activity or should be restricting its ability to, restricting the ability of people to use their platform to engage in criminal activity, fine. We have those sorts of regulations with regard to all sorts of financial transactions. Or we have those regulations put in place, many of them, directly after 9/11. This is why if you're transferring over $10,000, for example, you need to have basically a delay and the federal government checks into it and all of that. Okay, but that's not the entirety of what PayPal and the ADL are doing. According to
I'm just like, so he like, yes, if there is criminal activity, I mean, like, sure, PayPal might need help maybe pointing out when criminal activity is happening. It's not like, I don't know, it's like any of these platforms. Like, you don't necessarily know everything that is occurring, and there could be like nuances or something. Like,
Not like everyone leaves a note on their payment transaction, like, thank you for the illegal cocaine.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
So just
I straight
gotta
up do
bring
that
up
as a joke.
9/11.
What was that, Vieto?
Just gotta bring up 9/11.
Oh, for like,
It's impossible to speak about anything without being like, but 9/11.
This is America,
I mean, this,
after all.
It was
I am
It was only
actually
20
sorry.
years
I'll let you
ago.
go, Troy. Sorry.
no, you're good. That was all.
Oh, about 9/11. Yeah, no, I like my thing was like, it is a weird line because like after 9/11, like a lot of people on Ben Shapiro's side of this was all about the preventing of like any sort of like funding going to terrorist organizations, and they took a very like heavy-handed approach to that, in which they were even like blocking funds towards like charities that weren't Islamic extremists, or there were
Yeah.
some groups that were called Islamic extremists which you could argue weren't, or like whatever, right?
Right.
And they had no
Canada
problem
is
with
still
that.
doing that.
Well, I mean, so is America, right? But like the issue is like that's
Oh, yeah.
they're not, you know, he would be okay with that. But like again, they have specific laws that target those things, much like you would have, like if you wanted to put into place a law stipulating that white supremacist groups. I wonder if Ben Shapiro would be, or if somehow FBI was given permission to like block or investigate funding through PayPal having to do with white supremacy. Whether that would
Right.
be sufficient for him, or if he would still get like, that's too close to cancel culture. They might get me.
Yeah, I think it gets too close to like the world he lives in that he would have to oppose it.
Yeah. That's always, it's like, it's getting too close.
Before
This
we
might
press
affect
play
me
again, I
someday.
have a request.
Okay, what's your request?
Can we try listening to his voice slower first and then also faster?
All right, sure. We'll spice it up a bit. Playback speed.
Back speed. Yeah.
How slow? 0.25? Or is that too slow?
That's too slow.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Hard.
That's too slow. Okay.
That sounds like abstract music.
Mersmer, the chief risk officer and EVP of risk and platforms at PayPal, quote, by identifying partners across.
It just robots his voice. It's not very compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just sounds bored.
So you wanna speed him up a little bit. Are you thinking it's gonna chipmunk him? The reason why
I don't know if I can handle
maybe.
1.5 speed.
The reason why it won't work is because YouTube and Google have specifically made their platform so it shifts the tone to it, so you could speed up podcasts and it doesn't tonally squeak them into like chipmunks. So it's not gonna.
Oh.
It's sadly not gonna.
Well,
have
it'll
that
still
effect.
sound funny.
Cross sectors with common goals and complementary resources, we can make an even greater impact than any of us could do on our own. We're excited to partner with the ADL, other nonprofit.
Yeah, it's just fast Ben Shapiro, which is already fast, so it's like super speed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of neat how they've managed to do that. I remember when we were younger and like would record things on our tape decks or whatever, and then you play it on fast speed and we'd be like chipmunks, right?
Yeah.
But they've worked it out so you could speed it up and it almost sounds normal.
Yeah, like that. Now that you say that, that's obvious. Like that's really cool.
Yeah. No, I figured that out because like I digest a lot of podcasts, so I listen to a lot of things at faster speeds to especially when I'm listening to Ezra. I listen to Ezra on 2x speed, so I can get the essence of it without having to waste all of my days listening to a fascist.
I don't want to spend more time here than I need to.
Yeah.
Preserve your sanity.
Profits and law enforcement in our fight against hate in all of its forms. So, first of all, I am very uneasy with the rubric of, quote, hate in all of its forms, because as we have seen, many on the left perceive anything on the right to be hateful that they disagree with. And if you believe, for example, that men are men and women are women, this means that you're a hate monger. according to the left, and you should be suppressed. So I have some real difficulty in the language here. If they want to say we're
No, like they always go, the left wants to say everyone that they don't agree with is evil. Now, I'll give you a position that actually is evil, but that I like to defend and be like, that's the thing that they hate me for. But like that, why do they hate me for this?
It's like, yeah, Ben, I do in fact hate that.
I may be a transphobic bigot, but why do they want to ban me?
It's always trans issues, man. Like,
Always.
No, they never miss.
We're not going to get to it because we're going to end when this video is done for time. But the one Matt Walsh video about identity is like, it gets to the point where it's like, I would love for one of them to get into the nuance for how allowing trans identities to flourish, how that leads to decay and corruption the way that they pointed out.
Yeah.
I know that it vaguely has something to do with family, but they never spell it out. Like it's never like
step by step.
Yeah, like it's just like, how is society gonna collapse because we allow this? Like they never like connect those threads. It's just like it's like they throw their hands up and they're like, look what the left's doing, and society decay is inevitable.
We're over. Culture's done.
Yeah.
Like why? What?
And
yeah, I think part of the
no, I was just saying I would like an argument.
I think part of the reason that those conversations are so unproductive is we've touched on this on the show before, but like people on the right believe that society is like hierarchical, and so there are people inherently on the top and people inherently beneath them. So when people come along and they don't have a traditional man at the top married to a woman who's beneath him, who births children who are beneath her, when they don't have that like traditional hierarchy, then like they're completely abolishing everything they know about culture. Whereas people on the left are generally in favor of egalitarianism, where people can do what they want as long as they're not hurting anybody. So where people come at that conversation from completely different places and then no progress is ever made.
I mean, like you're hitting on another issue that like fits into this camp, which is it's the Jordan Peterson argument, which is like, we need order. If you
Yeah.
And there's natural lobster hierarchies, and if you disrupt the natural lobster hierarchy, then we have nowhere to go and we get chaos, and chaos is feminine, and we need masculine order on top of everything.
Yeah. The patriarchy is good, actually.
Yeah, I mean, so like you get that weird aspect of it, but then you still like the other argument that is still missing there is like, so you think that this hierarchy is somehow natural, but is it? And has it always existed? Not really. And like, even if we like try to like mess around with the hierarchy and change that, like, how does that inevitably lead to societal collapse? Like, it's like an assumed premise that if you let these things happen, societal collapse is coming. But I never hear an argument. Like, I think the closest thing to an argument as well that I've heard is something like, well, look at the Weimar Republic, or look at ancient Rome, or something like that, right? Which I guess is their idea, is like, you let decadence flourish and then the Nazis come in or something, when it's like, no, like that's you just being an asshole to people wanting to change.
Yeah.
You're the Nazis in this example, you know.
Like, that's not a necessary consequence of change, and the people who make that a consequence are you. So.
Yeah. My camera, I don't know how to fix my camera in this, but I've completely frozen in place. And I'm trying to like see if I can remove myself and bring myself back. Tried unplugging and replugging in my camera. I might just have to ride out in a frozen position for the rest of this. I'm gonna play Ben Shapiro and try to fix my camera. Here we go.
Okay.
We're cracking down on criminality. That's not even worthy of a press release. Right? That's what you should be doing. Businesses should, of course, always be fighting criminality and illegality, but that's not what we're talking about here, as becomes pretty clear as this press release goes on. The initiative with PayPal will be led through ADL's Center on Extremism, a leading authority on extremism, terrorism, and hate. PayPal and ADL will focus on uncovering and disrupting the financial pipelines that support extremist and hate movements. In addition to extremist and anti-government organizations, the initiative will focus, here we go, the initiative will focus on actors and networks spreading and profiting from all forms of hate and bigotry against any community. Now we're getting kind of broad, aren't we? We went from people engaging in criminal activity or people associated with criminal organizations to focusing on, quote, actors and networks spreading and profiting from all forms of hate and bigotry against any community.
Why would you be against this? Oh,
Seriously.
no. They want to combat hate and bigotry? How horrifying.
Yeah, and he has to
Oh my
pretend like that's a bad thing, that hatred is good.
Yeah. I like...
What's
Sorry.
to stop them from coming after me?
Yeah. That's always at the end of it, right? I would love as well
Yeah.
for them to just like embrace that and be like, I really don't want them to come for me. Like, just own it. But like, they're always just
Yeah.
like, they're gonna do this, and it's like, you know, it's because you're next. You're the bigot. You're the one who promotes the anti-trans shit. They're coming for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like own it, and if you don't like the realities of that, maybe be better. Like,
Improve?
Yeah.
No.
we're about conserving here.
Yeah.
I looked up a dictionary definition of conservative, and that's where I'm at politically.
Now, again, this makes me very uneasy because I do not think that the left is particularly circumspect in how they approach questions of hate and bigotry. As we have seen, the president of the United States, this doddering old quote-unquote moderate, has spent the last several months declaring that if you're in favor of voter ID, it's because you're akin to a Jim Crow racist. So, no, I don't think that the ADL has any monopoly on defining hate and bigotry. I think the left has a horrific habit of declaring everyone they dislike a hateful bigot.
I almost can't believe you just said that. Like, why are these voter laws specifically targeting racial minorities? Ben? Why is this happening, Ben?
The voter ID is so frustrating because, like, they act like the burden of proof is on us to prove that voter ID laws are racist when, like, you wouldn't be implementing it if they didn't depress the turnout of black people. So, like, this is a very easy argument if you're just honest about what you're doing.
Yeah.
I feel like he had a video that went viral where he was saying that the water bans were not racist, so therefore it's not a bill to prevent and then he was trying to justify the water thing. They can hand you anything. Yeah, like,
Yes, that's true, man.
it's just one of these things where it's like, you can try to sit there and deny, but again, why is it only these specific states that are making these bills happen? Why? What are they trying to stop from happening, Ben?
God, he definitely, like, cuts open all those kids' Halloween candy to check for knives.
Yeah. Well, it could. You don't know if they could have knives, so you got to check every single candy. All right, Troy. Every third candy could have a knife, and if you leave it so that you only check every 2 candies, you miss the third candy. So logically speaking, you need to check every single candy in the bag. And the left wants it, so you don't check any candy at all, and then that leaves to. Oh my god.
Have you considered taking a cash bailout to become a conservative commentator?
I think it's one of those things. Like, you'll probably feel it where you pick up on every single talking point that they already have. Like, this is so easy to just do. I could cash it. Like, the problem is I can't cash it in because there's probably too much. I would have to do one of those bigs why I'm leaving the left things. And then...
You have to Candace Owens it.
Yeah. Too bad.
Jody, I
have this
would
thing
protest
called
outside of your
morality.
house.
Yeah. Sadly, I actually believe
also your
in not
camera's
being a
frozen again.
bigot. No, my camera's permanently frozen. I think the only solution is closing down the entire thing that has everyone producing their videos in order to get my camera to work. And so I'm opting for just having my still stunned expression play out through the rest of this Ben Shapiro clip.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I tried doing every other fix that I can, and it is what it is. My camera should be perfectly fine, but it's not working. And I don't know if it's my internet connection bandwidth thing or something, but this has happened occasionally, and I think I need to get a new camera. Here we go!
And I don't think they have any restrictive principles here at all. So you put that on top of PayPal, and now PayPal says, okay, well, you want to subscribe to Daily Wire, or you want to subscribe to Daily Caller, or you want to subscribe to Fox Nation? Well, you know what they've been doing over there. Now, Tucker Carlson, white supremacist, Ben Shapiro, hate monger. Like
transphobe. You already did it in this video, Ben.
Yeah, like a few minutes ago.
Like you couldn't. You what? Hate monger? Well, how benign, Ben.
Yeah. Jeez.
I guess we can't use your platform anymore in order to, like, you can see where this is going, and it is nowhere good. Again, if you are attempting to crack down on criminal activity, I got no problem at all. The nice thing about criminal activity is it's a bright line, because criminal activity has statutorily defined terms. That is not the case with hate and bigotry. It's why we don't prosecute hate and bigotry in the United States the way they attempt to in Europe or Canada.
But hate, like, here's like the thing that what I was trying to say earlier too. Like, hate has a particular definition in our legal system.
Yeah,
it's statutorily defined, Ben.
Like they didn't just throw it in the law. Like, yeah, we can argue over what that means later.
Yeah. I mean, there's an element in which that's partly true in that, like, as I said earlier as well, like this struck me clearest when I got involved in union politics with my local union. When I was in a union, was I was on the executive board, and like part of being on the executive, you got to know your bylaws and all that shit, right? And you would always have members who are just like, they treat the bylaws almost like you would a religious fundamentalist, in that it's like the words, and it's like words are complicated, and like we don't. What was the original intent of this sentence when the person initially made this bylaw? You know, should we adhere to it to the point where like we ruin our union, or maybe be a little flexible? You know?
Yeah, like the reason we use words is to try to communicate ideas. Like,
yeah.
Maybe what were they trying to?
And part of that is like I think a lot of people want the law to be like super black and white, right? They want like the thing to say murder, bad. But then it's like, even that, all murder? What about self-defense? What about a case where like you're kind of pissed, so you kind of have intent, but it kind of was self-defense as well? Like where, like,
yeah,
you're never gonna.
Like
yeah, sorry, go.
It can't be perfect.
Yeah. But even then, we try our best, which is why like this argument against hate speech is so silly, which is like we do have statutorily defined hate speech. That we don't know how it applies in every single case in all of the universe, but that's why you have judges. Like, this is how a legal system works. And he went to law school. Isn't Ben?
And like, and frankly, in our country, his team appointed most of those judges. So like, chill out. You're gonna be okay, Ben.
That's like Ezra went to law school too, and this frustrates me the most. Is conservatives know fuck all about the law, even the ones that have gone to law school. It's frustrating.
True.
Which is a very good thing. We should not prosecute hate and bigotry in the United States because it is a fungible term. It is an empty vessel that you can fill with anyone you don't like. Jonathan Greenblatt, the CEO of the ADL, says, quote, "All of us, including in the private sector, have a critical role to play in fighting the spread of extremism and hate. With this new initiative, we're setting a new standard for companies to bring their expertise to critical social issues. We have a unique opportunity to further understand how hate spreads and develop key insights that will inform the efforts of the financial industry, law enforcement, and our communities in mitigating extremist threats." According to the press release, PayPal and ADL will work closely with organizations like the United Latin American Centers to protect marginalized communities against extremism. They will work closely with them to share trends and hate with marginalized and vulnerable communities, and with the goal of helping to empower and safeguard those communities which are frequently targets of hate groups and extremist acts. So you can see how this is going to bleed from here's a group that participates in criminal activity, we should crack down on that, to here are the kinds of people that members of this group might like to watch. And let's stop them.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Also, who cares?
Really, who cares?
Like, cool. PayPal's gonna look and be like, "Are you a transphobe, Ben?" And then they're gonna go, "We don't like transphobes, so bye bye."
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous version of reality he's trying to live in.
Yeah.
But I
It's
also
like my favorite.
sorry, go for it.
Go ahead. My favorite is like he'll read the text and then just immediately be totally wrong about what he just read. It's bewildering.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the other thing is like other companies have terms and services that they don't necessarily adhere to. You know what I mean? So it's like even though
Yeah.
PayPal has this policy, how do you know they're gonna rigorously enforce it? Like you're probably
Right.
someone who makes a lot of money for them, Ben. So like they're gonna be a lot more lenient to you than they would some like random no-name group that isn't gonna cost them that much, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Like just the hissy fit that Ben would throw alone isn't worth the headache for them. Like
Yeah, exactly.
And you can no longer patronize those sites. The militarization of neutral service providers in order to avoid the strictures of the First Amendment is a deep and abiding problem in American life. There are only two possible remedies. One is actual regulation that adds discrimination on the basis of politics to anti-discrimination law, which is, I think, the way a lot of states are going to go. Now that we've created a whole rubric of anti-discrimination law, much of which is in violation of basic First Amendment principles, by the way.
I will. So there was the first thing he said about like somehow a company choosing not to platform a political group is against the First Amendment. Like that's not true at all. You're a private company. You can do whatever the fuck you want in that sense, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
But also,
yeah.
what do you think of his solution?
Not a solution and not a sentence based in reality.
Well, like Ben is literally allowing for like Nazis to be protected.
Yeah, like there's no way around that in your version of things here, Ben.
Right?
Like it just at some point you can't obfuscate anymore, right? At some point you have to say just yeah, we're on the same team as those guys.
I mean, there's an element in which what he's describing would also allow communists free reign, I guess.
Yeah,
But then it's like how much of that is going to be enforced versus not enforced, or like
yeah, like we've talked about with it, the way that the FBI it did entrap like Muslims, like thing uh, things aren't enforced uniformly, and often when they aren't, um, it's in a way that leaves Ben unscathed anyway.
yeah.
You know?
Yes, they always remain unscathed. The most frustrating thing about it. I wish I think when Ezra was kicked off PayPal, it was like PayPal is trying to kill Rebel News.
That's
think
their
so.
one goal in the board
Yeah.
meeting. They were like, we gotta get the entire executive team on this. How do we kill Rebel?
Yeah.
Right? You can be against discrimination and also recognize that anti-discrimination law really, really impedes on freedom of association as well as freedom of speech. Right? Both things can be true at once. That racism is terrible, and also in the United States, you do have a right to say racist things. Both of those things can be true at once. In the same way that in the United States, I think pornography is terrible, and still, the Supreme Court has declared that you have the right to buy pornography if you're an adult. Right? Just because there is a quote-unquote right to do something does not mean that you always approve of the use of the right. However, if we are going to have an anti-discrimination rubric in the United States, and we are going to say it's not okay to discriminate against people on the basis of everything from identifying as a member of the opposite sex to race, like that entire broad spectrum, then the notion the only people who can be discriminated against are white conservatives seems to be a bit of a problem. You're going to see states fight back against that. That's one possibility. The other is we're just going to get two separate sets of service providers, one for conservatives and one for liberals. And listen, we here on the right, I'm happy to make money off of that. Because if there's going to be a right-wing PayPal, I'm happy to found it, and I'm happy to have people use it. It's fine with me. I'll make a lot of money. It is horrible for the country. As neutral spaces disappear, we have no relationship with the people who live next door to us. And that means the further polarization and split in the country, all of which I talk about in the new book, The Authoritarian Moment. But it is a deep problem. It's getting worse every single day.
My echo chamber isn't echoey enough.
I do love that he closed on the same line, which is that it's us white males that are going to be targeted, us poor white men.
Yeah.
Have you thought about the white men?
They're coming for us any minute now, guys. I know it.
I do. The other thing I find really ironic is his defense of. He's like, I don't agree with the application of. I don't think people should watch porn, but like, you have the right, so you can just watch all the porn you want. Meanwhile, Matt Walsh, who was on his platform, we watched the video of him about the Brandy Love thing, like we already mentioned it earlier. He explicitly said that he wanted to outlaw porn. Like, he's in favor of passing laws to ban pornography.
And like, Ben, whether or not you buy porn is a decision that only affects you. Whereas whether or not you're racist in public affects other people.
That's like the other thing that they never get is like, it's this idea of like they almost like ignore completely the harm some of these things could do to other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, no, like if you allow racists to proliferate on your platform, that harms other people quite directly, you know?
Yes.
Well, it doesn't harm him, so he doesn't care.
No, he's being harmed
I'm
now.
happy to make money off of that.
Yeah.
Hello, my rebels. Hello, my rebels. I'm a good boy. I'm a weirdo.